Okay. Julius present. Tom present. Madison present. Sarah present. What time is first period?
I thought we read Trump's first.
No, Obama is before Trump. Trump is the last one in the unit. Third period?
Oh my God, this is over.
I don't have any of our other people. You know, I'll go ahead and There's Kayla. Hi, Isaiah. Hi, Kayla.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, let me close this door. We're gonna watch something together. Okay, so on Canvas, I posted, not Canvas, oh my God, D2L, the other thing. I posted the text to Obama's speech, and I posted in the same thing a video of the speech. So we're actually going to, like, you guys can on your own devices pull up the text, but we're going to watch it together. It's like 25 minutes or so. Obviously it's a lot faster if you read it yourself, but like, since we're talking about rhetoric, I think it'll be helpful to actually hear him give the speech. And I've previewed it, and it's a lot better, like better quality than the Malala one. So I will put my AirPlay on. Hopefully, it's been giving me a hard time today. And I will share my screen with you guys so that we can all watch it together. And just tell me in the chat, guys, if it doesn't, if you can't hear it or anything, type it in the chat, because it'll be easier for me to look at that than to pause it and hear you say that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
There might be a little, oh, there's definitely a little bit of a lag. Hang on. Let's see if we can get that working appropriately.
Thank you so much.
Might be a little discrepancy.
Morning. Giving all praise and honor to God for bringing us together here this morning. I want to thank everyone who helped organize this breakfast, especially our co-chairs, Barbara, Juan, who embodied the tradition of friendship, fellowship, and prayer. I will begin with a confession. I have always felt a tinge of guilt motorcading up here at the heart of DC's rush hour. I suspect that not all the commuters were blessing me as they waited to get to work. But it's for a good cause. A national prayer brunch doesn't have the same ring to it. And Michelle and I are extremely honored, as always, to be with so many friends, members of Congress, the faith leaders from across the country and around the world, be with the speaker, leader. I want to thank Mark and Roma for their friendship and their extraordinary support and sharing those inspiring words. Andre for sharing his remarkable gifts. Now, on this occasion, I always enjoy reflecting on a piece of scripture that's been meaningful to me or otherwise sustained me throughout the year. And lately, I've been thinking and praying on a verse from 2 Timothy. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, and love, and of a sound mind. We live in extraordinary times, times of extraordinary change. We're surrounded by tectonic shifts in technology and in our economy, by destructive conflict, disruptions to our environment, and it all reshapes the way we work and the way we live. It's all amplified by a media that is unceasing and that feeds 24/7 our ever-shrinking attention spans. And as a student of history, I often remind people that the challenges that we face are not unique. That in fact, the threats of previous eras, Civil War, or World War, or Cold War, depressions, or famines, those challenges put our own in perspective. Moreover, I believe that our unique strengths as a nation make us better equipped than others to harness this change, to work for us, rather than against us. And yet, the sheer rapidity of change and the uncertainty that it brings is real. The hardship of a family trying to make ends meet. Refugees fleeing from a war-torn home. Those things are real. Terrorism, eroding shorelines, those things are real. Even the very progress that humanity has made, the affluence, the stability that so many of us enjoy, far greater prosperity than any previous generation of humanity has experienced, shines a brighter light on those who still struggle, reveal the gap in prospects that exist for the children of the world. And that gap between want and plenty, it gives us vertigo. It can make us afraid. Not only a possibility that progress will stall, but that maybe we have more to lose. And fear does funny things. Fear can lead us to lash out against those who are different, or lead us to try to get some sinister other under control. Alternatively, fear can lead us to succumb to despair, or paralysis, or cynicism. Fear can feed our most selfish impulses and erode the bonds of community. It is a primal emotion, fear, one that we all experience. And it can be contagious, spreading through societies and through nations. And if we let it consume us, consequences of that fear can be worse than any outward threat. For me, and I know for so many of you, faith is the great cure for fear. Jesus is a good cure for fear. God gives believers the power to love, the sound mind required to conquer any fear. And what more important moment for that faith than right now? What better time than these changing, tumultuous times to have Jesus standing beside us, steadying our minds, cleansing our hearts, pointing us towards what matters. His love gives us the power to resist fear's temptations. He gives us the courage to reach out to others across that divide, rather than push people away. He gives us the courage to go against the conventional wisdom and stand up for what's right, even when it's not popular. To stand up not just to our enemies, but sometimes to stand up to our friends. He gives us the fortitude to sacrifice ourselves for a larger cause. Or to make tough decisions, knowing that we can only do our best. Less of me, more of God. And then to have the courage to admit our failings and our sins, while pledging to learn from our mistakes and to try to be better. Certainly during the course of this enormous privilege to have served as the President of the United States, that's what faith has done for me. It helps me deal with the common everyday fears that we all share. The main one I'm feeling right now is that our children grow up too fast. They're leaving. That's a tough deal. And so, as a parent, you're worrying about, will some harm befall them? How are they going to manage without you? You can miss some central moment in their lives. Will they call? Or text? Each day, we're fearful that God's purpose becomes elusive, cloudy. Try to figure out how we fit into his broader plan. Universal fears that we have. And my faith helps me to manage those. And then my faith helps me to deal with some of the unique elements of my job. As one of the great departed heroes of our age, Nelson Mandela, once said, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. And certainly there are times where I've had to repeat that to myself while holding this office. When you hear from a parade of experts just days after you're elected that another Great Depression is a very real possibility, that will get your attention. you tell a room full of young cadets that you've made a decision to send them into harm's way, knowing that some of them might not return safe? What's over? When you hold in your arms the mothers and fathers of innocent children gunned down in their classroom, that reminds you that there's evil in the world. And so you come to understand what President Lincoln meant when he said that he'd been driven to his knees by the overwhelming conviction that he had no place else to go. And so like every president, like every leader, like every person, I've known people. But my faith tells me that I need not fear death, that the acceptance of Christ promises everlasting life and the washing away of sins. If Scripture instructs me to put on the full armor of God, so that when trouble comes, I'm able to stand, and surely I can face down these temporal setbacks. Surely I can battle back doubts. Surely I can rouse myself to action. And should that faith waver, should I lose my way, I have drawn strength not only from a remarkable wife, not only from incredible colleagues and friends, but I've drawn strength from witnessing all across this country and all around this world good people of all faiths who do the Lord's work each and every day, who wield that power and love and sound mind to feed the hungry and heal the sick, teach our children, and welcome the stranger. Think about the extraordinary work of the congregations and faith communities represented here today. Whether fighting global poverty or working to end the scourge of human trafficking, you're the leaders of what Pope Francis calls this march of living hope. When the earth cleaves in Haiti, Christians, Sikhs, and other faith groups sent volunteers to distribute aid, tend to the wounded, rebuild homes for the homeless. When Ebola ravaged West Africa, Jewish, Christian, Muslim groups responded to the outbreak to save lives. And as the news fanned the flames of fear, churches and mosques responded with a powerful rebuke, welcoming survivors into their pews. When 9 worshipers were murdered in the Charleston church basement, there's people of all faiths who came together to wrap a shattered community in love and understanding. When Syrian refugees seek the sanctuary of our shores, it's the
Pardon the interruption. I need clarinet for dismissal, please.
and churches who welcome them. The first to offer blankets and food and open their homes. Even now, people of different faiths and beliefs are coming together to help people suffering in Flint. And then there's the less spectacular, more quiet efforts of congregations all across this country. Just helping people. Seeing God in others. We're driven to do this because we're driven by the value that so many of our faiths teach us. I am my brother's keeper. I am my sister's keeper. As Christians, we do this compelled by the gospel of Jesus. A command to love God and love one another. faith, and more importantly, the faith that I've seen in so many of you. The God I see in you, that makes me inevitably hopeful about our future. I've seen so many who know that God has not given us a spirit of fear. He has given us power and love and a sound mind. We see that spirit in people like Pastor Saeed Abedini, in prison for no crime other than holding God in his heart. Last year we prayed that he might be freed, and this year we give thanks that he is home safe. We pray for God's protection for all around the world who are not free to practice their faith, including Christians who are persecuted or who have been driven from their ancient homelands by unspeakable violence. And just as we call on other countries to respect the rights of religious minorities, we too respect the right of every single American to practice their faith freely. But this is what each of us is called on to do, to seek our common humanity in each other. To make sure our politics and our public discourse reflect that same spirit of love and sound mind. To assume the best in each other, not just the worst. And not just at the National Prayer Breakfast. To begin each of our works from the shared belief that all of us want what's good and right for our country and our future. We can draw such strength in the quiet moments of heroism around us every single day. And so let me close with two such stories that I've come to know just over the past week. A week ago, I spoke at a ceremony held at the Israeli embassy for the first time, honoring the courage of people who saved Jews during the Holocaust. And one of the recipients was the grandson, or the son, of an American soldier who had been captured by the Nazis. So a group of American soldiers are captured, and their captors ordered Jewish POWs to identify themselves. And one sergeant, a Christian, named Roddy Evans, in Tennessee, ordered all American troops to report alongside him. They lined up in formation, approximately 200 of them. And the Nazi colonel said, "I asked only for the Jewish POWs." He said, "These can't all be Jewish." Master Sergeant Evans stood there and said, "We are all Jews." And the colonel took out his pistol and held it with Master Sergeant's head and said, "Tell me who the Jews are," and he repeated, "We are all Jews." Faced with the choice of shooting all those soldiers, the Nazis relented. And so through his moral clarity, through an act of faith, Sergeant Evans saved the lives of his Jewish brothers and others. Second story, just yesterday, some of you may be aware I visited a mosque in Baltimore. To let our Muslim American brothers and sisters know that they too are Americans and welcome them. And there I met a Muslim American named Rami Nashashibi, who runs a nonprofit working for social change in Chicago. And he forms coalitions with churches, and Latino groups, and African Americans, and poor neighborhood in Chicago. And he told me about how the day after the tragedy in San Bernardino happened, he took his 3 young children to a playground in the Marquette Park neighborhood. And while they were out, the time came for one of the 5 daily prayers that are essential to the Muslim tradition. And on any other day, he told me, he would immediately put his rug out on the grass right there and prayed. But that day he paused. He feared any unwelcome attention he might attract to himself and his children. And his 7-year-old daughter asked him, "What are you doing, Dad? Isn't it time to pray?" And he thought of all the times he had told her the story of the day that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Rabbi Robert Marks and 700 other people marched to that very same park, enduring hatred and bigotry, dodging rocks and bottles and hateful words in order to challenge Chicago housing segregation and to ask America to live up to our highest ideals. And so at that moment, drawing from the courage of men of different religions, of a different time, Rami refused to teach his children to be afraid. Instead, he taught them to be a part of that legacy of faith and good conscience. I want them to understand that sometimes faith will be tested, he told them, and that we will be asked to show immense courage, like others have before us, to make our city, our country, and a world a better reflection of all our ideas. He put down his rug and he prayed. Now, those 2 stories, they give me courage, and they give me hope, and they instruct me in my own Christian faith. I can't imagine a moment in which that young American sergeant expressed his Christianity more profoundly than when confronted by his own death. He said, "We are all Jews." I can't imagine a clearer expression of Jesus' teachings. I can't imagine a better expression of the peaceful spirit of Islam than when a Muslim father filled with fear drew from the example of a Baptist preacher and a Jewish rabbi to teach his children what God demands. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. I pray that by His grace, we all find the courage to set such examples in our own lives. Not just during this wonderful gathering and fellowship, not just in the public piety that we profess, but in those smaller moments, when it's difficult, when we're challenged, when we're angry, when we're confronted with someone who doesn't agree with us. watching. I pray, as Roma so beautifully said, that our differences ultimately are bridges. That the God that is in each of us comes together. And that we don't divide. I pray that our leaders will always act with humility and generosity. I pray that my failings are forgiven. I pray that we will uphold our obligation to be good stewards of God's creation, this beautiful planet. I pray that we will see every single child as our own, each worthy of our love and of our compassion. And I pray we answer Scripture's call to lift up the vulnerable and to stand up for justice and ensure that every human being lives in dignity. That's my prayer for this breakfast and for this country in the years to come. May God bless you, and may He continue to bless this country that we love.
Okay, stop share. I feel like despite what anybody's politics are, you gotta admit he's a really good speaker.
He is, that's crazy.
He's so
Like,
powerful.
He memorized the whole thing.
That's exactly what I was
Or he
wondering.
come up with it.
I'm like, do you have cue cards? Like,
Well, he didn't look down and once.
no, he didn't. It's kind of amazing. I don't. Maybe it could be on a teleprompter. That's a good thought. Yeah, it seemed like, I think it'd be so fun. I don't know if fun's the right word, but to be a presidential speechwriter, like, I just feel like it'll be so fun. Cause, well, I was actually in my AP class, we were looking at, we were comparing Bush's 9/11 speech with FDR's declaration of war. We did that last year. And I was like, I'm really glad that we're doing this now, because I feel like over the course of the next couple of months, we're going to see a lot of political speeches. Like, we're definitely going to see Joe Biden make some. We're going to see Donald Trump make some. We're going to probably see Mike Pence and Kamala Harris make some. And I mean, I definitely listen to speeches now with an English teacher's ear and like think about the rhetoric that they're using. But I think it'll be, I'm kind of glad that we did Obama first, just because I think it'll be really interesting. I feel like he does do a lot of the things that are sort of typical of presidential speeches. And I think that for the most part, Trump has been kind of seen as like someone who goes against the norm when he's doing public speeches. So I think it'll be really interesting to see the difference. And also, it's the same event that we're looking at Trump speaking for next week, the National Prayer Breakfast. So like, I haven't looked at it yet, so I don't know what the content of his speech is, but I think it'll be really interesting to see the differences in how he approaches it and how Obama approaches it. We'll talk about this more tomorrow, obviously. But just off the top of your head, did you guys recognize like any rhetorical patterns or choices that he made that kind of stood out? The pauses, yeah, he's very good about
He uses it so effectively.
He does. He uses his pauses very effectively.
When he gives his speeches, he's like so informative that it just catches your eye and catches your attention, you know?
Yeah.
You never get your eyes off Obama.
Yeah. He's a very charismatic speaker.
What did the spectacle do you go based off the video?
You can talk about the video. Yeah. I mean, like, the text is the important thing, but I mean, I wanted us to watch it because I think it's more powerful to watch him say it than for us to read it out loud in class, you know?
Yeah.
Well,
Also because of the pauses.
Yeah. Yeah, you can totally talk about that. Eventually, y'all will be writing a rhetorical analysis of one of these 4 speeches or letters in MLK's case. So just sort of be thinking about, I mean, you have to think about the rhetoric of it when you're doing your discussion posts, but, you know, kind of think deeply about what sort of rhetoric he's using and why it's so effective. So your discussion post for this one, let me just double check. What's today? The 9th. Yes. Okay. Did I actually unlock those pair? I don't think I did. Huh. Okay. It won't be due until next week. The Obama and Trump texts the post for those will be due at the same time. Oh, actually, look at that. I gave you an extra little weekend there. Because this whole week of Thanksgiving, y'all don't come to school. That first day is an e-learning day. So I'm not gonna release a new text that day. Just to give you less to do over Thanksgiving.
So when is it?
The 23rd.
The next
Monday after next. Yeah. So today's Obama, next Monday's Trump, and the next Monday they're both due. You can absolutely do them both before then. And like obviously that day, the 20th in class, that Friday, we'll just have to work on those. I don't know that I did actually. Yeah, I'm still here.
Friday?
The Friday before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, but not the week.
You don't actually have school like this entire week.
Okay.
On that Monday is an e-learning day. I kind of feel like most of your teachers will probably like post something very easy or be like catch up on work. But yeah, that's kind of why I made it do that day, so there could be like, oh, here's the thing you're supposed to do for today. But you can obviously do it before. Did I open the paragraph quizzes yet? I did. No, I didn't. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then on Wednesday, we'll kind of talk about what those are, but you can take a look whenever you want. Well, Isaiah, you're not going to have to stand him very much longer.
I know. He'll be out.
Yeah.
There's a huge celebration going on.
Actually, like the way that I heard that that Joe Biden had won, and I don't know how I didn't see it because I was refreshing my phone like every 5 minutes trying to check. But my best friend lives in New York, and she called me, and I thought it was weird because she'd already called me once that day, and I was like, why is she calling me again? And she lives like right in the heart of New York City, and she said, so I was just like sitting in my home alone, and I heard like insane cheering in the streets. And so I turned on the TV, and that was how I found out that Biden won. So like, I was like, that's a really cool way to find out, just like the city around you kind of rejoicing. Okay, so we're going to talk about this tomorrow. I talked about switching it to Wednesdays, but you do lessons on Wednesdays now, right? So let's just do it on Tuesday, even if some of y'all have to Zoom in with us. I feel like the discussion is maybe the most important part of the week, so I want to make sure everybody's there for it. All right, anything from either of you, Isaiah or Kayla? I'm going to let you hang up.
That's literally ironic. They're talking about it on the TV now. I'm watching CNN, and we're just talking about politics.
I bet that's all they're talking about on CNN. All right, I'm going to let you guys go, and we will chat about this tomorrow.
Okay, see ya.
Bye.